Hello, in this video I will be going through the course and project overview for MMDD 255, Emerging Multimedia Practice 2. So once again, just like last semester, you can think of this course and the project you will be building as an opportunity to discover and convey and communicate the you knew was in you, because this is an opportunity to work on a more personalized individual project that goes in the direction of your personal and career interests. So the course approach here, and I'm going to probably go through these slides fairly quickly simply because it's quite similar to the class you took last semester, just with a few changes to how it's going to go down. But you have a good sense already of kind of the pattern of how this course will unfold, the sort of work you will be doing, and kind of how the submission process works and all that kind of stuff. So there shouldn't be quite as much just initial onboarding. You should have a clear idea of what to expect, but I will go ahead and go through the most important information here as a reminder, and also to clarify how things in this course are a bit different. So first, differences from MMDD 232, which you would have taken last semester. The course and project this time around lasts 9 weeks rather than 14 weeks. I think you have another course in your schedule that also has this kind of compressed approach to it of a 9-week schedule. And the reason for that is that it gives you additional time at the end of the semester to complete any work placement hours that you may need to complete. And even though, this class is 9 weeks, it still is expected to, carry the breadth of a full semester course, meaning that consider this time around that minimum project work time expected per week is 5 hours rather than 3 hours, right? So that amounts to around the same amount of hours over time. So just think about putting more time each week into this project than you may have done last week. And your schedule should also be a bit more open this semester for you to hopefully feel less overwhelmed in doing so, but it's still very, very, very important that you still manage your time and stay on top of things and all of that grand old stuff. We will be meeting one-on-one one time rather than 2 times. So there'll be one assigned one-on-one meeting that'll happen in stage 2, and that'll be an opportunity to really just, iron down what your direction for the project is and ensure that you'll be able to complete it well over the course of the semester. However, there's going to be some drop-in sessions as well. So, those will be available for you to come by with any questions about your project. And I also plan to, use those as open time for you to come by with any questions about like applying for jobs in your career and your resume and cover letters and stuff like that, because when I have one-on-one meetings with students, I usually talk about some of that stuff, or I get a sense of where students are at with it, and they tend to be very overwhelmed by it all. So I want to act, I guess, as a resource for you to help in that way. So these drop-in sessions, and I'll say this as they're coming about as well, yes, they're an opportunity to talk about this class and your project, but also just consider them as an opportunity to ask me any questions or get any insight. I can look over, job materials you might have, or any strategies for trying to find work and stuff like that. So, keep that in mind as well, so it can just be kind of professional advice meetings as well. I also am in connection with previous student graduates who are already, on the path towards successful careers, and I'm planning to have a few or a couple of them come by and have some online, basically guest speaking sessions where you can also ask them questions, and that'll be such a great opportunity for you to get a sense of how recent graduates in this exact program have been able to start building their careers. And depending on who I'm able to come by, they may be at even varying levels of their careers. But there's been some great successes from this program. So I'm bringing that into the class this semester because I think it would be valuable for students. And I've gotten some feedback as well that something like that might be helpful for y'all. So all I ask is that if, there is a guest speaking opportunity coming, that you please attend it, right? So that they have a good amount of students to engage with. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And there are less course submissions this time around. So there's only going to be 1 submission per project stage. If you can recall, last semester, there was things like stage 2A, stage 2B, stage 3A, stage 3B. But this time it's just stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And you should have a good sense of what each of those things will look like. However, since there are so many fewer submissions, right? That's only 4 submissions. You can only use 1 late waiver this term, because otherwise, if you're using 2, then that becomes half the submissions in the class being late, right? So you have the opportunity, or the strategic possibility of using 1 late waiver this semester, and that's also meant to, of course, ensure that you're on time with your project work and your project development, and you don't fall behind, especially in this semester that's going to move more quickly. Okay. And as with last semester as well, your late waiver cannot be used for the final stage 4 submission. So really, there's only 3 opportunities for you to potentially have a late submission this semester. Project brief, once again, similar to last semester, you'll propose and develop a multimedia project that you'll complete throughout the semester. The purpose is to develop remote worker skills, right? Continue improving in those skills that you would have started developing last semester, like time management, async collaboration, professional communication. It will also expand your multimedia skill set, right? This project is meant to help you build and grow. And it was great to read your reflections from last semester and seeing students, thinking about how much they learned about themselves and how they work and what they need to improve on when it comes to, making projects like this. And that's very, very important and critical for you to reflect on and understand, especially as you're getting into your careers, because that will just make you more successful and understand more about what works for you moving forward. And it's interesting as well, this is an aside, but one of the students I'm hoping, or one of the graduates, professionals, I'm hoping to come by and talk to the class. I had a conversation with them recently, and they were just telling me how important it is to be able to kind of be a self-starter and kind of figure things out on your own in some ways. Because, they got hired and then showed up to work, and then no one's telling them over their shoulder, do this, that, and the other. There's goals that need to be met, but you have to figure out how you're going to reach those goals. Okay, so a class like this really helps you work on those skills, which is very important for you to have. The delivery for this course is similar to last time, online, primarily asynchronous, with one-on-one meetings, drop-in sessions, and remote team check-ins. Right, you'll have your remote teams this semester as well. And success requires organization and consistent weekly effort. Success stories. This is the same as last time, but again, students have been very successful in this program, and they have used these courses in particular to create specific projects that have helped them when applying for jobs. They'll show it to potential employers in the interviews. They'll talk about what they've done, and so this becomes a very good opportunity for you to, again, help your career in this way, right? You want to make a project for your portfolio that's going to, get you on the path toward your career goals. If you don't know what your career goals are, that's also something to think about and consider, even though, it can be a big question. So all that to say that these projects have helped students in the past. So, putting a lot of effort in taking it seriously will pay off for you if you do so. Asynchronous project work time, similar to last semester. A significant amount of your time in this course will be spent working on your project asynchronously. Time management is key to ensure you're making consistent progress. Calendars and time management tools can be helpful. And you're expected to spend at least 5 hours a week on the coursework, right? Ideally 5 to 8, but 5 hours minimum is where you should really be aiming for this time around. Like I said, because it's a condensed semester, and I want to make sure you're moving forward on it well. One-on-one supervisor meeting. So we will have the one-on-one meeting. It's only one, though. I need to adjust that because, like I said, over here, it's been lessened to just one-on-one meeting, but there are still the drop-ins and other opportunities that will happen throughout the class. And, of course, you can always reach out to me with questions and such. Time management, come to meetings prepared with questions, and I will provide information about all of this on Blackboard, as always. Drop-in sessions, there are expected to be 2 drop-in sessions at key points during the semester. I have some idea of when these will fall, but I'll make sure to let you know, of course, ahead of time. Excuse me. These drop-in sessions are optional and act as additional touch points for Q&A and feedback. Remote teams, you're in a remote team yet again, and you'll connect with them and provide each other feedback, basically. I have actually tried to be a bit strategic this time around with your remote teams, and assigned you into groups based on creative interests, and I used your projects from last semester to do so. So I'm hoping that's a success, but it gets you at least connected with students in the program who are interested in similar kind of career trajectories, I think. So hopefully that's helpful and helps provide fruitful relationships in that way as well. So that's a nice little mix up this time around. So you need to make sure you connect with those students you're assigned to work with. And when I say work with, I mean for feedback, not for a group project. Your project, create a portfolio-ready multimedia project, self-directed, relevant to your personal interests and your career goals. That's always very important because you should also make sure this is something that you actually find fulfillment in creating, not just something for the sole purpose of getting a soulless job or something like that. You want it to actually be something that interests you as well, so that working on it doesn't feel like such a slog. You cannot repeat previous coursework or double dip with any other courses. So, portfolio websites and things like that, you're making that in another class, so do not do that here. You will submit progress for review of key points. And you also can potentially build on and extend your project from last semester if you would like to, if you can consider a way to propose a substantial project that builds on what you were doing last semester. There are possibilities with that, and you can always reach out to me if you have any questions on that. Some example final projects. These are actually from last semester. So I'll just show you here, just to, again, get in your mind what some good projects can look like. This is Haley's project, creating sort of these 3D renders of accessories. So this is a great case study, a great project, because of course you can see it's very clear and direct with the creative process and how it unfolded for Haley. But I also think this is a great project because it really showcases Haley's own distinct kind of artistic style and vision, right? It's very kind of forward thinking, a little futuristic, it's on trend and stuff like that. And I think this becomes a great opportunity then with the project for Haley to be able to sort of convey, again, her artistic interests and the sort of style and aesthetic that she would like to work with or finds interesting. So, maybe this case study, this project wouldn't impress someone who's looking for a super corporate designer, right, at a bank or something like that. The bank is always a classic example, but, at a bank, right? Maybe they would see this and say, okay, this is a little too edgy for us or something like that. But if applying to something like a creative agency where they work with a few different clients and they want things to seem a little bit more, pushing the boundaries and things like that, a bit more artistic, then they might see this and say, wow, she would be a great fit onto our team. So, these are the sorts of things I would also be happy to talk with you about in some of these drop-in sessions, is like, trying to use these projects to also communicate your creative voice, which isn't going to work for every single job you apply to or every job posting you see, but it will resonate with those particular postings or companies or teams where they find resonance with it, if that makes sense. So this is why I think this is a great project, because it is a bit more niche in its approach and its visual style, but I think that will lead to its benefit. It's my hope for Haley. And then this is a great project from Laura. It is her video cover letter, which I don't know why sometimes Behance does that. Yeah. Video cover letter, of course, the case study itself, super engaging and nice to look at and impressive. Also, of course, very clear yet comprehensive creative process. The technologies used, research, mood board inspiration, the script, all of these great things showcasing what Laura worked on last semester. And this is once again, a project that is very clearly directed at helping Laura with building her career or getting hired and things like that. This becomes a very engaging way to once again convey her personality, her artistic style in a very engaging way that would ideally impress those who she's applying to. So this is a very portfolio job application focused kind of project, but I think it will work really well in that way. Whereas the other project I showed you is definitely a bit more artistic and experimental in some ways. So again, of course, as I always say, there's a lot of different directions you could take your project in this class, but I just want you to start thinking about these things, right? What is the actual end result of what it is that you're making here, and what can it do to benefit your career, and how can you really focus on that component of it? Project purpose, build remote work readiness, adapt to emerging technologies, specialize your MMDD pathway, all the classic stuff, and strengthen your portfolio for work placement and career. The stages, just like last time, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. Propose and plan, pre-production, production, finalize and deliver. You should have a good sense of each of these stages by now, what is expected of them, and what you will do during those stages. You can see here the stages broken down as well as the weeks you'll be working on them. So for stage 1, weeks 1 and 2, so you'll have 2 weeks there to really iron down what your project is going to be, get your plan very detailed and very well set. Then pre-production lasts weeks 3 through 5. That's 3 weeks. In this stage is also when we will meet one-on-one, so that will be a good opportunity to see where you're at, make sure you're on a good path with this project, and spending adequate time in pre-production, really making sure you set a very strong foundation so that when you move into the production phase during week 6, 7, you will be able to kind of hit the ground running, get your drafts together of final assets, and then I have finalize and deliver for weeks 8 and 9 so that you'll have enough time to really polish your work and also polish and create your case study as well, right? This weekly breakdown, I've been thinking about the best way for it to go, how many weeks to give each particular stage. This is the current approach. Maybe it will change throughout the semester, but I really I think that this should be good. And yes, it might seem like there's a lot of planning and pre-production, but in a professional scenario, spending more time on that is extremely important and helpful because, again, everything gets smoother in the production phase and polishing and stuff like that once you've spent a lot of time thinking through what you're doing and making creative decisions ahead of time, rather than doing it while you're making the thing. Evaluation, SAT, UNSAT. This is also just like last semester. So just making sure you're on time, you spend adequate work time each week, you're prepared for your meetings, and maintain consistent progress. Unresolved unsat submissions, under 5 weeks of demonstrated work, under 5 hours per week of demonstrated work, missing meetings without notice, and putting off project work or consistent delays will lead to an unsat. Okay, and of course you can always reach out to me to discuss anything that's going on with your project. But yeah. Additional course info, late submissions. Here's your late waiver. 1 allowed this semester, like I mentioned before, with a max of 1 week late, excluding the stage 4 submission, and more than 1 late submission is an automatic unsat in the course. If you think about this schedule here on how production will take place during week 6, 7, and then you come back from that, and then reading week happens, right? And then you come back from reading week and you finalize and deliver. If, for instance, you find, you weren't able to stay on track with your production work, then there is that reading week there, and you could use your late waiver strategically in that way. But I don't necessarily encourage you to be spending a reading week on this project. But if you want to think about where you're at with your work and what you need to do, again, you can be strategic about this late waiver if you would like, or if you just happen to forget to submit, then of course this also is important for you to use. So but making sure you're on time is of course most important. AI policy can be used as a tool, ideation assistance, design inspiration. Excuse me. Must be acknowledged and transparent. Cite in the AI use. This would have been the same last semester. You remain responsible for accuracy and explanation of work. I did have some instances last semester where students very clearly used AI, but they either didn't think to cite it or be clear of it, or maybe they were trying to get away with it in some weird way. But I just said, look, highlighting that you're using AI in this way actually shows that you're on the cutting edge of creative development these days, right? Because I'm sure people are like, how can you utilize AI for X, Y, Z? But utilizing AI is different than AI replacing you, right? So if you're using it in creative ways, that's a good way to show that you can, adapt to new technologies and new tools and find creative ways to use them rather than just relying on them too heavily to do all of your work for you. So again, there's very compelling ways you can integrate AI into your work, and you can be clear about it, and that's a good thing in this class. Okay, so think about that. Professor contact, that's me, Christopher Ollendorf. Blackboard messages is preferred, as you would have learned last semester. And if you start a Blackboard message thread, please, any future communications with me, just keep in that same thread so that doesn't end up being 5 different chat conversations with the same student. You can also email me, right? That is my email. I definitely provide that, and I will respond within 48 hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I think students last semester would hopefully have seen that I tend to respond relatively, promptly. So hopefully it's all good there. And if you have any questions, of course, always send me a message. Tips for success: read weekly announcements carefully, stay organized with your project plan and timesheet, communicate early with your professor or your team if you're facing any difficulties, dedicate, should be 5 to 8 hours weekly. I will update that as well, and choose a project you'll enjoy and grow from. That is, of course, most important. Oh, but also most important, enjoy the creative process.